I actually, for the first time in my entire life, felt what peace felt like and also what self-energy meant. It wasn't until I accepted my muchness that I was really able to trust and expand. It was like I was wearing a mask. I had my insurance broker Marissa version, and then I was binging and purging because it was so stressful and I wasn't in alignment.
Welcome to the True You Podcast. I am so glad today to be not only with my co-host Bill Tierney, but also with a special guest today, Marissa. And before we actually let you say anything, I'm going to introduce you, okay? Say something.
All right, that sounds wonderful.
Great. Marisa Skolky. Skolky?
You got it.
It's such an interesting background, so I want to read what your bio says. You are a seasoned transformational doula, expressive arts facilitator, and psychedelic integration coach. Wow.
Yes.
Specializing in trauma-informed integration of non-ordinary states of consciousness. Marissa's work weaves IFS-informed expressive arts, somatic therapy, hypnotherapy, and Reiki into a cohesive psychospiritual model for preparation, harm reduction, and integration. That's a lot. That's a lot of concepts to, you've got a lot of experience. We're going to love getting into this. So with over a decade of experience, Marissa supports individuals in safely exploring consciousness, releasing trauma held in the body, and reclaiming the creative life force as a path to healing and self-discovery. So this is an interesting approach. Honors the nervous system, the wisdom of the psyche, and the intelligence of the soul.
Yes.
Bridging ancient shamanic ways with modern therapeutic frameworks. Marissa believes healing is a birthright, and that through embodied creativity, compassionate witnessing, and intentional integration, profound and lasting transformation is possible. So we're going to get
Indeed.
that today. It's just amazing, all of the fascinating stuff here to talk about. And it's all in this one beautiful person we have before us today.
Welcome, Marissa.
I'm so grateful to be here. I'm just huge fans of your podcast and the work that you're doing and supporting safe spaces for people to get to know themselves and their parts. Mm-hmm. It's really deep, transformational work.
You were saying before we hit record, that's how you found us, was by attending Parts for Practice sessions. And then you discovered the podcast, I assume, came next.
Yes, yeah. That is very true. Yes. And I also have worked with Lori, I think Chauncey, I think her is her last name, and she's been on this podcast too. She's someone that I admire and appreciate very much. So,
in fact, is she still in Georgia? She was also in Georgia.
Yes, we have intermingled our networks together, and we are friends and peers. Yes.
Yeah. So for the listener, if you haven't heard the Lori Chauncey interview podcast episode, look it up. I'm not sure which episode it is, but yeah, Lori's great to listen to as well.
I'm just curious how all this got started for you. Maybe it never started. It's always been, and you just became aware of it going on inside you. But either way, there's kind of, I'd be interested to know the origin story of all this beautiful work you're doing.
Gosh, it's been really a reclamation of my psychic gifts and my intuitive abilities as a highly sensitive person and someone that has always been very expressive, musical, dancing, singing, always in Broadway shows growing up. My parents were musical. I played piano since I was 3, guitar. I've always made up my own songs. So that has always been a part of my self-energy. My soul is a musical medicine woman. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I don't know how much you guys know about the Mayan calendar, the Tzolk'in calendar, but you have an archetype based on your birthday, and mine is the White Galactic Wizard. And basically what that means is an archetype that uses art and music and heart-centered consciousness to help people come back home to themselves. And my journey of overcoming bulimia that I struggled with for 16 years, but ultimately I had struggled with eating disorders, including anorexia and all sorts of stuff, since I was at least 6 or 7 years old. And the work that I have done with plant medicines, with IFS, with somatic work, expressive arts has really led me into a process of learning how to take my emotions and make art with it so that I can alchemize and transmute any resistances and bring it into harmony. Mm-hmm. And I live my life as ceremony and as art. And this has been a long journey for me in learning how to work with my parts and manage a system that can sometimes feel very intense and overwhelming as when you're a highly sensitive person and you feel things very deeply. So
when did that sensitivity, when was it first, like, you knew, oh, this is a thing to deal with?
Being highly sensitive?
Oh gosh, my whole life. I've always been very, just I can read energy, I could feel things. When I grew up in New Jersey during 9/11, I sensed that something was going to happen that day. My dad was supposed to go into work. He was going to go work at the towers. And I was like, don't go into work today. And I must have been like 12 or something at the time. I woke up and my whole body was like covered in rashes. My heart was beating really fast. I've always been super in tune with what's going on around me, hypervigilant also because of some of the upbringing that I had around a parent that wasn't able to regulate their own emotions. And therefore I had hypervigilant parts that internalized that, and it led to me trying to avoid and distract myself from the shame that I felt around being too much or not being enough. And that's like the core wounds that I've been making into my art and helping other people, like these core, making songs for helping them create songs for their soul so that they can rewire their relationship by using a creative means. But yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I have learned a lot through experiential means.
Oh yeah, clearly it's been your experience. No, I just wondered if there was a point at which, like, oh, I'm not like others. I have a gift or something to be ashamed of. Was there a moment when you realized, oh, I'm different?
Yeah, I think I've always been the black sheep of my family, like extra expressive, just to the beat of my own drum. I'm definitely the only one in my family that works with psychedelics. Mm-hmm. And I actually was an assistant vice president at an insurance brokerage for 12 years. And I quit. I was doing my healing work part-time.
In the context of this conversation, that sounds psychedelic.
I know, it does. It was like I was wearing a mask. I had my insurance broker Marissa version, and then I was binging and purging because it was so stressful and I wasn't in alignment. And then when I finally got to a point where my body was breaking down and I was on the like I was about to die. I was so sick that I was about to die. And I took a 3-month sabbatical. I went to Mexico. I worked with a medicine called Iboga and Iboga. And I actually, for the first time in my entire life, felt what peace felt like and also what self-energy meant. And it changed my entire life. And I quit my corporate job. I went full-time with my healing work and I never looked back.
Can we slow that down? So you're dying. Did you know you were dying?
Yes, my adrenals had shut down. I was about to have surgery on my bladder. My hair was falling out. I was highly emotionally and energetically not very stabilized, very depressed, incredibly anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you find your way to Mexico and this Iboga?
I had been working with different types of plant medicine since 2009 and in touch with different shamans and medicine people that were guiding me. I had an incredible level of intellectualization and awareness about my patterns, but somatically, nervous system-wise, I was stuck. And I had heard that Iboga was a medicine that could rewire your dopamine receptors. and also rewire your central nervous system. And it gave you a 90-day window after your Iboga flood to be able to restart your whole life, basically, and reset all your patterns. And I had an EKG and a full blood panel because it's serious medicine. 1 in 400 people die on a microdose. So I risked my life and I did this medicine. It was my last hope because I had tried the therapy. I had tried all sorts of different, I had hypnotherapy, Reiki, I had tried everything. I had probably done at least 15 years of talk therapy, EMDR, like all the things, all the plant, psilocybin, MDMA, like all the medicines except for this one. And when I went out there, I felt like I had a reset. And I took that opportunity to change everything in my life and treat my life like I was starting over. And I was going to live my life without fear and in alignment with my higher self and from a grounded, clear, integrity place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still my mantra.
That intention that you just described, did that come before the Iboga or after, and with the assistance
After.
of that? Okay, so you've got a clear slate now.
Yes.
Clean slate.
Yes.
And from that clean slate, you have the ability to set an intention. And you and I, and Marty too, and many of our listeners understand what self-energy is. Would you say that was a self-energized choice? Or
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to acknowledge your bravery, your courage, right? When you tried all these things and life was hard in a lot of ways and things were falling apart, and 1 in 400 people even die of this, and you went like, whoa, what a brave girl you are.
Thank you.
It sounds like you didn't have much to lose, though, too. I don't mean to discount courage. I agree with Marty.
I was willing to take the chance, and if I died, then I died. It was scary for sure, but there's that quote by Anais Nin, right? There's like only so much you can take in terms of staying the same before you break out of your shell.
Yeah.
And I was fighting myself for a really long time, and it was tiring. And so I have so much compassion when I work with other people with IFS and all these different modalities, because I've actually been to this place of the underworld where I know what it's like to have a divorce. I know what it's like to almost lose everything. I know what it's like to not be in alignment. And I also know what it's like to feel hopeful and connected and in integrity and in alignment. And I have embodied experience, and I also clinical and professional training that also supports that growth for me, so that I can be a clear channel and hold space for others without transference and countertransference and whatnot.
Back to the Mayan calendar. know the archetypes under which I was born and what, and start to explore that and see where that takes.
Oh my gosh, she would love it. It's
okay.
lawoftime.org/decode, and you could put your birthday in, and it gives you a color and a tone and an archetype. So you might be white or blue or red or yellow, and you have a tone. So each tone, each number corresponds with a different energy. So for me, galactic is the number 8, which is less like this infinite timelessness, endlessness energy of infinity. And that's the energy of what I bring, is this infinite, enchanting energy of positive possibilities that inspire and activate other people. But it wasn't until I accepted my muchness that I was really able to trust and expand, and knowing that I was going to trigger people with how big of an energy I am and what I can. There's going to be some people that I rub the wrong way, and then there's going to be some people that feel inspired and some people that feel threatened and triggered by it. And
you claimed your muchness, and some people interpreted that as too muchness, and you accept that too. I was just in a conversation with a client 15 minutes before we signed on to record this episode, where we had a similar conversation, certainly not the same language to describe the conversation, but at the essence, the conversation was about how draining it is to try to be someone who you're not.
Oh, yes, 100%.
You said that you had been fighting yourself for a long time. So let's
Yes.
go ahead and speak some IFS here. What parts were in conflict?
The part that didn't think she could handle anything, the part that was overwhelmed, the part that was the distractor, the part that was catastrophizing the worst case scenarios, the part that does what she wants, Bingezilla.
You have a list of
the
parts
part-
you're referring to? You keep looking down.
Yes,
You do?
I have a.
Okay.
I was prepared for this interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of these parts, all these are just parts of my system that I'm sure other people have too, like the perfectionist and the taskmaster and like the intellectualizer. But I have really fun, creative ways of working with them and make songs for them. Each part has a song.
Oh, really?
And when I sing, oh yeah. And when I sing the song, they soften back and they're like, oh, okay,
That's
so
my
you hear
song.
me and you see me.
She's
Yeah.
singing my song.
She's singing my song.
That's great.
It is a way for me to break through the fear of myself and into the creative space of positive possibilities and create space in my nervous system.
You just made a really good point that maybe people that are relatively new to IFS may not understand quite yet. So I want to really underline it and bold it here, maybe even put it in italics, and that is that when parts relax, very naturally, the innate energy of self emerges. And that's the whole purpose of IFS, is to increase self-leadership. Self-leadership happens when we become self-energized. And self-energy happens when parts relax. Parts don't intend to block, maybe aren't even consciously aware that they're blocking access to self-energy and all of the jewels and resources that can be accessed thereof.
Right.
So singing, composing, and then singing these songs to your parts helps them to relax, gives you more self-energy, helps you tap more into your resources.
Yes.
That's where all that creativity comes from.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, there's this muchness that's showing up.
Yes.
Isn't this a fun conversation?
Of course, yeah. Yeah. When we could use the meat from our parts and how they're feeling, and we can take that and put it into a creative process of creating an aesthetic response, a movement, a dance, a dialogue, a storytelling. There's something that you're right, it creates a spaciousness and a relaxation and an understanding and a permission for that part to be heard, seen, and witnessed and expressed instead of pushed away.
Marty, I want to give you an opportunity to jump in. I've got so many different trailheads that we can pursue.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. I'm here with you.
Let me just name a few things. One, I'm curious about your ongoing experience with plant medicines, but let's not go there quite yet. But when we're ready, I'm really eager to talk about that. I want to talk more about the idea of and the concept of self and self-energy with you, just to get your take on it, because I have what seems to be a relatively unique take on it that doesn't align for a lot of people. And it's okay if it doesn't align with you. I just want to have that conversation. And then maybe as interesting as both of those topics are to me, the thing that I really hope that we can talk about today is that in your practice, helping people using all of these different modalities and tools, your experience with helping people to unburden and what that even means to you. Do you mind if we start there?
Oh, yes. I love this topic.
Great.
No, I guess it relates to the plant medicine work that I have done studying with Lakota elder named Grandma Shirley in Mexico. And in the work that we do in Temescal and Sweat Lodge, there's also a space of rebirthing yourself. Like you go into the womb and you come back unburdened and refreshed in a somatic, in a spiritual, and an embodied sense. But in terms of in IFS, the work that I've done with exorcisms with Grandma Shirley, the Lakota elder that I've studied with, has been incredible because it's not all the time that you get to practice unburdening a part that doesn't actually belong to that person's system, and the nuance that it takes to make sure that you're not unburdening a part that's actually a part of their system that they just have a resistance to. And that's a growing edge for me in my mentorship with my IFS therapist, and also with the indigenous elders, where I work in the spiritual and energetic space of unburdening energies and ancestral patterns that, may not be part of that system. But in terms of if it is part of that system, how can we allow that part to have a new role? And I like to use the elements. So I bring in the fire and the earth, right? And the air and the ether, make it a ritual, a ceremony, so that there's intention and that there's agreements around the transmutation of this part's role, and make sure that it feels fully heard, seen, and understood before it agrees to even unburden its pain or beliefs that it's unburdening. And the creative process of visualization, and I always like to make it real for the client. So we go and we dig out a hole, and we're unburdening in that digging of the hole, we're unburdening the limiting belief, and then we actually plant a seed of the qualities that they want that part to have. And they do it at the same time that they're unburdening the process. So it's like a process of actually planting a new seed for that person to water and nourish, and how that relates to the natural cycle of our connection with the earth, and how the earth unburdens, and how the earth regulates and alchemizes. And there's this a spiritual, energetic, and emotional piece that goes along with the unburdening process. And I take care in making sure that I'm doing it in a pace that is slow and is trauma informed, and not going faster than the part is ready to go.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I'm delighted to hear a couple of the things, all of what you just said, but especially around what is a burden. And you defined it right there. And as you described it, a burden is the unresolved emotional pain from trauma, or it's the belief that helped the person survive the trauma. How would you define it in any other way, or in an additional way to that?
Sometimes it takes shape in like a form or an image or a memory.
Mhm.
And so it could be deeper. It could be like a pain in your left foot that has been there since you were born, and how to work with that in an experiential way, where you're bringing in self energy and creativity to help that person meet themselves in a new with a new perspective.
Let's just say,
Yeah.
let's just use that for an example. Let's say I've got, and I don't, but let's just, for example, say maybe that burden settled in the bottom of my right heel. So how would you work with that to unburden?
Well, I would first ask if the right heel is open to me connecting with it today, and I would ask for permission first.
So from that, you're assuming that the pain in the left heel is actually the domicile of the part.
I would start there because that's where the felt sense is.
Yes.
And I always like to start with the body,
Yeah.
because ultimately there's a lot that the body stores in terms of subconscious. So when I work with people, and I'm also a student of the Tamalpa Institute for Expressive Arts Therapy, they have a really incredible program of basically drawing, painting, dialogue, and movement. And they always say start with the body. And so depending on whatever you're feeling, so a part comes up, all right, it's the right heel. If the right heel were a movement, how would it move? Maybe it wouldn't move at all. Maybe it would just be very subtle. But like, to start with the experience and the sensation, how much tension, what the temperatures. So start with the embodiment piece, and then move into like, how does it feel? How are you feeling towards it? And getting into that as you build relationship with the embodiment of it, then you can work with what comes up from there. That's how I tend to work with it, is I start with the body.
Yeah. And that's very reliable. I don't consider myself to be a somatic expert in any way, shape, or form. I don't have hardly any training in it other than through IFS, which teaches that too. This is where in, on, near, or around the body are you finding or experiencing this part. So that's great. And I love how you are really diving in and looking at all the different facets of the experience of the physicality of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And within that, we find a connection with the part, and now we can have a conversation.
Yes. And then we can have a conversation, and maybe that conversation is, maybe that person's going to draw that part on a piece of paper. And maybe there's a title for that drawing. And now that maybe there's a story behind that drawing, and maybe that they are writing the story of that part's experience.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to act it out together. And I'm going to play the part of self energy, and you're going to play the part of the foot, and then we'll switch roles.
Nice. Gosh, I love this. This is great. I would love to have an experience like that. It's fantastic. Okay. Anything else you want to say? And let me just move over to Marty. Marty, not trained in the IFS model, has learned, I think, a lot from me in the conversations that we've had. But how's this conversation flowing for you as you're hearing Marissa and I talking about on these IFS terms?
It is flowing.
Okay. Anything you want to ask or add?
What I'm thinking about and wondering, what if you've got you're working with somebody who's, well, I don't draw. I don't know how to write music. Where do we go then?
I love that question. Thank you. I work with where they're at, first of all, and I never push somebody further than where I think that their growing edge is. Mm-hmm. So there's like a lot of times I have male clients come to me and they're not necessarily comfortable with dancing, or even just the word dancing might make their nervous systems start to get a little hypervigilant. And so we can start with a practice called nonlinear movement method, which is a practice developed by Michaela Boehm, and it's done for people in wheelchairs, for anybody. It's typically done on hands and knees with the eyes closed and with an eye mask. And so you're just moving your spine, literally. And it's a really safe, easy space for someone to start with movement. Again, no one's looking at you. You've got an eye mask. Like, it's done on hands and knees. So you could do it very subtly, but I think it gives people, in terms of if they're new to movement, that might feel safe. Also, I had them start with taking their opposite hand. If they're not into drawing, they're going to draw with their opposite hand anyway. So this is not about it being so good. It is about getting into a different part of your brain so that you can access your subconscious mind. I also had them do bilateral drawing, so they're using both hands, so in that way they're synchronizing both hemispheres of their brain. Again, neuroplasticity, that's what I'm here for. Is that embodied felt sense of shift and change that you can get through literally changing things up in a very somatic, experiential way.
It's so interesting, yeah, because I work with mostly people in offices, and it's about their work, usually, not always, and so I can expand on some very simple things that I've done. Did such a simple thing as have them stand up and stretch. And when they sit back down, there's so much more self-energy possible. And I can and so given what you said, the movement of the spine, the what was the other word you used? Like getting into the other ways of feeling themselves, like that helps me very much to know, okay, I can expand a little bit on the simple things that I've done and get them more aware of what's going on. And then when they sit back down and I ask them questions, it's amazing how much more is available to them. So thank you. That's very helpful.
Are you looking for a way to apply IFS in your everyday life? The Compassionate Results Guidebook can help. It blends IFS with coaching to help you work with your parts, make self-led choices, and live in the world authentically. You can order your copy on Amazon or learn more at compassionateresultsguidebook.com. Now back to the episode.
Yes, thanks for the question. I always love that question, because people come, they're like, I'm not an artist. And everyone's an artist. There's someone that's coming to me that has incredible level of anxiety, a lot of anxious parts. They're often creatives that their creativity has gotten constipated and they need help getting unstuck. And that's where I'm help.
I'm also dying to go to my piano and write music for all my parts now.
Yeah, that's
Because and I
Yes.
think that I've been kind of doing it unwittingly. I know a lot about what's going on inside of me, which of my parts I need to attend to, how, by what music is going on in my head at any given time. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in my romantic mode. I'm doing that guy, right? That song. Or, like, oh, it's just drums. Oh, that part of me needs attention now, right? Like, so this is all very enlightening. It's amazing how much wisdom you have in you.
Thank you. I've been dancing the 5 rhythms practice since 2012, and that practice has deeply informed my ability to move through life in every energy and all the emotions. That's also a map, just like IFS,
Yeah.
on how to navigate your psyche and your life.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is I have these structures that I feel like are really valuable in helping me manage my parts. But I have these really intense parts that are very loud, and they like to express themselves, and finding ways to do that by using creativity instead of self-destruction. Otherwise they self-destruct if they don't express, because it can be very, because I feel things intensely. Yeah, I've had to find ways to contain a safe container for my parts to express themselves.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being a highly sensitive person or feeling things deeply or being a lot or whatever.
Or being a little.
Or being a little, whatever it is that you are.
Yeah.
When you say manage your parts, that when I'm working with my clients and I hear them use that language, for me, that's a yellow flag that needs to be addressed. But I think I understand what you mean by managing your parts. You just defined it. You want to find a way to help your parts express themselves. And that's
because it gets really sneaky, because I have helper parts too that think that they need to help manage the parts that aren't in line or whatever. So I hear when you say the yellow flag, I completely get what you're saying. To be mindful of, am I trying to put these parts in line, or am I trying to understand and make space for all of them and give compassionate witness and voice in their expression and how they show up? It's a constant practice of cultivating what I call my Iboga self energy.
nice. I've had a lot of different jobs. I've worked for 55 years and have spanned something like 7 different careers. And I've worked for a lot of managers. And there are great managers and there are not so great managers. And the not so great managers often are very heavily agenda laden and see me as an employee as a piece of the machine that needs to be manipulated and used. The great managers are the ones that recognize that the best thing they can do is, if I'm a piece of the machine, is grease the way for me. And so there's different management styles. And we're not talking about leadership here. There's self-leadership, but there's also self-leadership that manages parts by helping them, as you say, to find their true expressions and greasing the way for them, making it easy for them, easing their way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So valuable, so potent, to grease the way rather than trying to have an agenda and manipulate into the ways that you want them to be.
One of the early recognitions, I guess, that I got once I started to understand my own internal system as I went through levels 1 and 2 training with the Institute, was to recognize that when parts give up their old jobs, most of the time they don't want to retire. They want something else to do. And sometimes they have an idea of what they want to do, and sometimes they don't. So I began to develop the practice of keeping a list of job opportunities for parts that find themselves unemployed.
Oh, that's amazing.
I love that.
So I'll go through the list with the parts. Okay, here's something. I need a part that will help me to remember that every Friday afternoon, I need to review my blog articles and make sure they're up to date. And you interested in that job? No, boring. Okay, I've got another job opening. Here's a part. I need a part that will help me to remember that I'm married and that I need to connect with my wife every once in a while, and that I can't stay completely buried in my work. Are you interested in that job? And the partner might say, yeah, it sounds interesting, but I'm not sure how I can do that. Okay, we're going to need some on-the-job training then. Cool, great. So that's how I work with my own system.
That is neat. Thank you for sharing. That's so inspiring.
Yeah, most parts don't want to remain dormant. I have other parts that want to just say, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to integrate into your whole system. And if you need me, let me know. But then I don't ever hear from them again. After that, they just completely integrated, and they are truly part of who I am. And if they're specializing at all, I don't know that until they actually show up in some specialized way. And then a part that I might have worked with 5 years ago shows up again in a new role.
Totally. I've had that experience as well when my part that likes to distract me and with food and cookies, it now yawns to distract me. So
okay.
it still takes over the whole system and stops me from whatever is going on, but it's transmuted. It's changed its
found a way
protecting my system. It's found a way.
It's found a way that is more aligned with current reality.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. How we doing for time? We got some time, don't we?
I'm very curious about the topic you mentioned about the self itself. Because I think a lot of people have a view of what self is and how to talk about it, and so I think that would be a worthwhile thing to get into.
Great. Yeah. So let's just let you say whatever you'd like to say about that, Marissa, unless you need to hear from me or Marty about it first.
When I feel into self energy, it's the part of me that channels the songs from the divine and that are super catchy and get stuck in your head, and it's grounded and clear and fearless and like more neutral, like observing, and like it's like my archetype of the white, like kind of the white galactic wizard. She doesn't rush for anyone. She doesn't need to worry about anything, so she doesn't have to be anxious because she trusts life, because she's divinely connected. It's this energy of total trust, integrity, presence, where I don't feel like I have to run away or avoid. I feel settled in my nervous system. I feel really like just open, heart-centered.
You're describing as self-energy, and I love that. I love that what you're describing is your experience. Talking about the concept or theory that explains that experience, which I think is self.
Yeah, I feel it as that. In self energy, what self is the part of the part of the true higher self, part of yourself that is not a part, and it doesn't have an agenda, and it's like the observer of.
So let me share, if I could, the distinction.
Please.
That through experience of working with my own system and that with my clients, and I'd love your take on this. Please feel free to completely disagree with my take.
Go ahead.
So first of all, as I said, I love that when I asked you about self, you described your experience of self-energy. So that's real. Nobody can, we could call it something else, but your energy changes when you are imbued with self-energy.
Yeah. Yes.
The idea of self is a theory. It's not an experience. Therefore, I question, does self exist at all? Mm-hmm. Self-energy exists, I know, because I have the experience of it. And when I have the experience of it, it is manifested through my parts. It doesn't show up as a separate entity of any kind. Not in my experience. I'm experiencing through my eyes, for example, the appreciation for seeing the buds in spring starting to show up on the plants or the trees, the first robin of the year, the first snowfall or any snowfall, the beauty of a newborn baby. The experience of that is perceived through my self-energized parts and giving me feedback that then somehow seems to link to the next part and the next part and the next part. And now there's this movement within me of all of these self-energized parts. And so that's the experience of self-energy. And I'm okay with calling that self. Where I get feel like it's a little off is when then I have to create something in my mind, like a cognitive creation to explain the experience I'm having and calling that self.
Can it even be defined? Can we even define? Does it need to be defined?
I don't know that it does. I'm open to, first of all, recognizing that I'm part of the whole, and the whole includes something beyond what I identify as myself. In fact, I've told Marty about this before and others that are in my life. Occasionally, in the middle of coaching sessions with clients, I'll get a download, and it doesn't feel like I have a choice about whether to share it or not. In fact, if I resist sharing the download, it gets painful. I get distracted. I'm not paying attention anymore. It's almost like the download is saying, you must share this. This is here for you to share right now. So what is that? I don't know, but something tells me it's somehow related to that same self energy that I experience.
Yeah.
Would you say, because I'm relating this to the self as in like the yogic tradition, and there the self is considered both immanent in things, like in each part, in the experience of the birds and spring and the archetype and all of that, and also transcends them. It's both immanent and transcendent. Now, there's no concept to make up about it, but it's both in things, but it's not. It's also unifying of them. It's transcendent at the same time. It's in and transcends. Does that ring true to you?
That rings true to me.
And sure, and me too. And here's the thing I think that's most important about all of it is, once again, it's the experience of it. And I am drawn to have more and more of that experience. And the irony, is it the irony? Yeah, let's say it that way, is that in order to have more experience of it, I need to be willing to have less experience of it. In other words, I need to be able to just blend in and lean into those parts of me that are cut off from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A surrendering and trusting and allowing.
Beyond each, because those are all concepts in a sense. And so it's like leaning into, they're like fully attending to them till their conceptuality, it disappears, and you're just in the itself.
Well, and that's often what is creating the suffering in the first place, is getting stuck in concept.
Right. In the yogic tradition, those are called samskaras. They're things that stick with us from one life to the other.
Yeah.
They can be, a work. They can be integrated. They can be better integrated.
It reminds me of when oftentimes people want to do psychedelic work so that they could blast through their egos and be one with everything. And it doesn't always work that way, because your psyche will only let you go as far as you've done the work to meet your parts, because you can't break through what your psyche won't let you break through.
So psychedelic integration facilitator or coach. That's part of your bio. You're a psychedelic integration coach. So what are the core, I don't know, what are they, principles or guide concepts, I guess, that you use to help people integrate their psychedelic experiences?
Yeah. One is like micro rituals and intentional embodied practices that help them take their insights and make them practicable. So if, for example, they felt a deeper level of compassion for their inner child who's scared of being loved, for example, how can we take that insight and put that into actionable practice so that they can build relationship with that part in the coming weeks, as they are still in that window of neuroplasticity. So they're more open to learning new things, they're more malleable in their brain. And so some practices could be, maybe there's a song that they want to sing for that part to remind them of their innocence. Or maybe they have a mantra that goes with movement to embody their, what it is that they want to create. So I recently had a client who called in Grandma Clarity. And so we had this movement, breath, sound, and movement to help her integrate this knowing that she could call upon this energy of her ancestor, and it had a shape and it had a repetition. And when she practiced that, now she doesn't even have to say Grandma Clarity. As soon as she puts her hands together and goes like this, she's creating neurolinguistic programming, basically, and anchoring in her nervous system to allow her system to remember what peace feels like.
Yeah.
And so as a certified hypnotherapist as well, I use like these earworm mantras and these embodiment practices, and whether it's tapping or some form of way of connecting to the body, speaking it out loud, and creating rituals that are repeatable, consistent, committed, and perfect actions that help that person take their insights and actually build relationship and through a creative process. And sometimes we make healing tools. I've made huge pillars of all sorts of artistic things. I find all sorts of ways in helping people connect to their parts and both prep and integration.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Touch and vision, seeing certain things too, like the paintings that you have on your wall. I assume that they bring you to a certain place.
Yeah, the music too. The music definitely guides the journey.
And touch as well, I would imagine some people, for them, you know, to touch certain fabric or the rough tree bark or something will represent those states.
100%. So part of somatic experiencing and somatic work and regulating the nervous system is like orienting yourself to 3 things that are green and 4 things that are blue, and finding something that's soft and putting your head in cold water. And so there's all these different sensations that help bring presence into the body so that you can be unaware of what you feel and need in the moment so that you can attend to it. But it takes a slowing down, and it takes a trusting that it's safe to slow down, which is where the preparation and nervous system work that I do with clients before psychedelic experiences sets them up for success.
Got it. I know that we have to wind down soon, unfortunately. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to talk with you more?
Yeah, so I am huge on community. I have a bi-weekly group call that's every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time over Zoom. And it's called the Resource and Support Group Call in the Entheo space. So it's a safe space to talk about, learn and share about psychedelics, ask questions. Also just a place to share on what's on your heart and mind. Sometimes we do IFS prompts and things like that for prep and integration. Also, they can book a free discovery call on my website, which is www.marisaskolky.com, MARISASKOLKY.com. And my business is Beyond Limits Expressive Arts Therapy. So I offer both psychedelic prep and integration work as well as expressive arts therapy, dementia, adult daycare support, and also I support women and girls that have been sex trafficked and sexually abused and find creative ways to make their trauma their art. So I'm affiliated with so different types of nonprofits that employ me to help them with that. So
Thank you.
I'm all over the place.
You are.
Your muchness.
My muchness. Free discovery calls, though, so people can see if my work is right for them on my website.
And that's they can set that up by going to your website at marisaskolky.com.
Yeah, it's free 45 minutes, and I make it long so that I can get a deep understanding for where they're at and what they've already tried. Because most of the time, people are coming to me because they've tried everything, and they are at a point of major transition. They've lost their job, or they're changing careers, or they've gotten divorced, or they're so tired of fighting themselves, they're exhausted, their nervous systems are dysregulated, and they're ready for something totally different.
You mentioned a bi-weekly group. I don't see the link here for that. How does that?
That's under, so I can also put that in the chat as well. And also if they go to my website under group classes, they'll be able to find that as well.
Okay, that's all we need then. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. I so appreciate that you reached out and told us that you wanted to be a guest. And what a pleasant surprise it is to have you here. Surprised only because I hadn't met you before and didn't quite know what to expect. Frankly, when I read some of the things that were on the bio that you sent over, I thought, oh boy, here we go. And everything that I've heard you say, it just fills me up. It just delights me that you're doing all of these things. And I want to acknowledge you for, boy, the investment, the deep investment from the risk of 1 in 400 dying with this plant medicine that you took to clearly your investment of time, energy, money, effort into expanding your awareness and your toolbox for being able to help others. What a generous heart you have.
Thank you. I receive.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for your muchness.
Thank you for creating a safe space for us to connect and share honestly, vulnerably, and openly. It's such a pleasure. Both of your energies feel really nourishing and feel safe to my nervous system. And I'm grateful that there are incredible men that are doing this work, that are creating safe spaces for others and helping them, empower them to tune into their hearts.
Yeah. But we're on the leading edge, aren't we? All of us.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks again, Marissa. Stay in touch.
Thanks. Great
Pleasure.
We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.